What's up, you guys? Welcome back into another video. We're going to be going through the guns in the edge and also the half position today. Plenty of big names in these sections. A little bit easier, I'd say, to select your guns or even the whole position in terms of mid-rangers and cheapies in this position. So it'll be interesting to see which guns we select. I'd say we probably have to be a little bit more selective in this position compared to our mids and also our hookers. I spoke in a couple of videos ago. I think my strategy this year would be to load up a little bit more cash in the hooker, mid, probably a little bit more in the edge as well. Depending on what happens with team lists, I think there's a possibility of having a few mid-range or cheapy edge guys, which would really help. But that mid position, I think, is going to be a real tough one. You might be bringing in one cheapie from a bench of someone's team, of some team in the comp there at 220 or 240. But this one here, especially the half position, probably a few more options at that cheaper range. But we'll jump straight in here with David Fifita. So very, very, very good player for us last year. Obviously averaged 66.5, and we do get him at a tiny bit of a discount, surprisingly, even with the fact that he will be losing a bunch of tackle breaks. So over my 14% of teams, you can completely see why he's very, very fun to watch. My main issue for him is going to be the fact that he started playing minutes either off the bench or just limited minutes when he in the back end of the season. He obviously still did really well. The team's going to be pretty well similar, I'd say, to where they were last year, just sneak into the 8 or somewhere between that 7 to 10 bracket. For me to really justify this 800k price point, I think he needs to get back to 80 minutes. And the question, still remains, is he going to get that? As I said, he's going to lose a fair bit in tackle busts. Should be playing Origin. So I'd personally be leaving him out to start, which I think is completely fair. He scored a lot of tries last year. Obviously, you can see most of the games here he's scoring tries. He got a couple of triples there where he gets that over 100 mark. But, those games there of 12, 8, 14, 16, 11, 8, 11, 8 tackle breaks. So, really, really solid player for the season. But those minutes is a little bit of a worry. He can obviously still score really well in that. But there are games here with 56 minutes for 26 points, or 43. And then the rest of them is scoring tries. So keep that in mind for David Fifita. But for me, he's probably a pass at this point, and I'd be spending my money a little bit elsewhere. Tyson Frizell, a 57 average last year. And you look at his minutes, and he's pretty much played 80 minutes in every game he played, apart from 4 there. So not too much room to grow in terms of, obviously, the minutes, and he had a really, really good year. So can I see him improving from where he's priced at right now? I don't think so at all. The other thing to think about is the fact that he shouldn't get as many opportunities in a slightly poorer side than last year. I'd imagine for him to go really well, and Ponga's going to really help him out, and obviously Clooney and Clifford, but that might take a little bit of time. So he might become a decent option at some point if he can drop his price down in somewhere in the low 600s. But the main issue is that, also the fact that he's played Origin. So it's like, when would you pick him up? So for me, it's a pass. Barnett from the same team. So he's a little bit more interesting to me. That dual position, middle and edge, you get him at a 54 average last year, priced at 56. If we look at my notes there, so I'm seeing him as having a little bit more upside in an 80-minute edge role. So let's have a little bit of a look at his edge games there. And you look at the starters, obviously a couple of lower ones, but in amongst a 62, a 72 and a 70. Obviously scoring tries in 3 of those 6 games there to start. But then you look into his games in the lock position. So he's getting mid 40s to mid 50s in that position, and a high score of 53 over that time, with a few 30s and a couple of 40s. So that's something to keep in mind, that if he's going to be getting that edge role, you'd want him to be keeping that long term, because I see him as having a little bit more upside in that position. Look to his games following that. We've got a 65, 43, 60, 49, 72, 66, 55, right, and a 46 to finish. But all solid scores with some upside, right, in those 60s and 70s. So for me, there's a little bit of upside for him, for someone that's not going to play Origin, who is a pod at this stage at 699k. I think he's a better option than someone like Frizell, or even Fifita at this stage. I just think, the dual position is going to be really cool. Busy, as I got other notes there, is just being a busy player, and I'd like to see what happens in the trials and also team lists. If he's on that edge in the trials and he gets named there, and they aren't picking guys like Fitzgibbon or whoever else they are thinking about playing in that position, they have Brady Jones and stuff like that. So if those guys don't make the side or something like that, then he's someone interesting to think about. All right, Hudson Young at 686k. We'll move on to him. So the main issue with Hudson is the fact that there's a chance that he doesn't even get the second row spot. He has also had issues with this with Sticky in the past and not giving him that edge position for the long term. There's a big chance that he changes things up like he did last year. He's got CHN on there. He's got Elliot Whitehead who can play some edge, obviously, has for a long time, but he's spent some time in the middle as well. So does Young get that consistent 80-minute role? If he does, I think there's some small upside. So if you look at a lot of his scores here when he plays 80 minutes, they're very, very high. He's got a low of 48 in his first 5 games. And then if you look back here towards the end of the season, he's got a game of 92. There's a 69, a 65, a couple more mid-60s, a 75 there. So really, really strong scores when he gets that 80 minutes. Obviously, the random bad game there, and a bad game for him is going to be a floor of 38 and 39. So not the worst when he has that scoring upside of in the 70s to 90, 92 there in that game. So he's someone to think about if he can get that role. He's obviously a little bit of upside just for the fact that he played some lower minute games off the interchange through that early-ish part of the season, around 7 to 11 there. So that's it with Hudson Young. If you're interested, he's not going to play Origin, things like that. There's a few things that are very helpful, but I'm passing on him at this stage as well. Ryan Matterson. Okay, for him, obviously, his concussions, he had a couple fairly close together. They hampered his season for sure. He came back and he played well, but not incredible. He also started to get less minutes. He wasn't playing full matches. So I feel like there's definitely a little bit of upside for him. And if he can get back to that 80 minutes, but the worry is, are we going to see that straight away? Are they going to, how are we going to know that he's going to get 80 minutes unless he comes out and says it? That's my worry. And that's probably why I'll be looking at passing on him at this stage, just because we don't know if he's going to get that 80. Because if he's getting 65 to 70, like he did a bunch of times last year, he still looks off. He's someone that does look to offload the ball. You can see a fairly, regular 1 to 2 offloads per week with a few zeros in there. But, he came back after that, the 6 weeks off with concussion. Picked up a 39, had an awesome 92. We also scored, I'm on Hudson Young, sorry, still. All right, Matterson, where we go. Okay, so he comes back from his concussions played the first 2 rounds, then comes back, and he's a little bit slow, a couple of decent scores randomly when he's scoring tries there for sure. But then we see him getting around that 65 to 70 minutes on the majority of occasions. So that's my issue. He can still score well with that. He has a nice PPM of 0.7 for someone that plays close to 80 minutes. So, a pod as well as 683. If he can get closer, back closer to those 60 scores, which he has done in the past, I suppose that's the big thing for him is he's got that pedigree of being one of the best edges in the game. So that's why I'd say he'd be a decent option for sure. But yeah, just a few queries. So if you're not worried about those queries, or we hear something close to the season he's going to play 80, then I think he's going to be pretty solid at that price point. All right, Josie Curran. So 675. I spoke about him a little bit in the interesting options video, but we'll go into him a little bit deeper here. So for me, he's got that dual position, not playing Origin. I'd love him on an edge. If we look at his scores in a moment, he has much better scores on an edge. Just playing that 80 minutes really is what you're looking for. Obviously, decent few scores in his first games back for the year. A couple of games in the middle, but when he moved to the edge in the back end of the season, 83 and 90, and all in base basically with a few tackle breaks and offloads. He's got 58 straight in base there. 97 with 1 try, which was really cool. Obviously a 44 there and not as good of a game, and another 44. So there's solid scoring in there, but you're getting someone at priced at 54. A dual position. You're looking for him to score somewhere in the mid-50s, right? You're picking him up as a keeper with maybe a little bit of upside. My only worry is when Tohu comes back, does Curran play middle? Does Tohu, I'd expect Tohu to play middle, so does Curran get an edge? What happens, like you and Aiken said he's going to be playing there all year. They've got Eli Katoa. What's going to happen with Curran? That's kind of the question mark. But I'd say at the start of the year, he's going to have a pretty solid, start and score you well. I wouldn't be worried about him scoring under that 54 or 52 was his last average, but that 54 price point. He's got that try scoring upside, the dual position. Everything is really solid for Curran. So I'd put him in a similar mold to Matterson in terms of they have a little bit of upside and should do well, and they shouldn't drop on their average. Let's say that. Okay, we'll talk about Tevita Pangai Jr. So plenty of chat on him here. We've got him at 668k, dual position as well. Shouldn't be playing Origin. if he plays really well, he obviously has a good chance. So we'll say he's a chance of origin at this point. But as a dual position, a little bit of an uptick in offloads compared to some of his tackle busts. So he's going to lose a few TBs, but the offloads will offset that because he's someone that is offloading a couple and a half a game. You're going to see a minutes improvement, right? So that's the biggest one for TPJ. In terms of looking at a bunch of his games in the middle here, he still scored really well. He's got 52, 76, and 67 the first 3 games with those lower minutes, but then a 31 to 42 minute game for 26 and 36 really killed a lot of his value. And then finishing off with a couple of interchange games at the back end of the season with the Panthers, obviously it brings down that average as well, even though he did score tries in those games. So that's where you get the upside for him. If he's getting 80 minutes on an edge in a solid team, obviously in what the Dogs are going to be this year, they probably should be better than what the Broncos were last year. Tevita's obviously growing as a person and a player. He has played a bunch of years now. We've got him all the way back to 2016 when he was a youngster. So he's older now. I really think the time at the Panthers served him well, and that's probably something that a lot of people should put into their thought process when you're thinking about Tevita, is the fact that I think he played really well for the Panthers in a smaller role, obviously an interchange role for him. When he was at the Broncos, he's obviously around a bunch of young guys that, that's all they really had the last bunch of years since he's been there. He now moves, he's moved to the Panthers. He's got he's worked his apprenticeship, let's say, and now he's going to be able to do it on an edge for the Dogs. And that's why I said the upside. He could end up definitely being an 800k player by the end of the year. Would he be as good as Payne Haas? I don't think so, just for the inconsistency, whereas Payne, I feel like, is a lot more consistent and a bit more of a captaincy option. TPJ could get 100 on his day, or he could get a 40, right? So he's going to be a bit more volatile, a little bit of a suspension worry. But really, I definitely see some great upside and the best upside in this group. So if that's not bullish, I don't know what is. And I imagine I know a lot of people are actually thinking of him already, but I think that would help. And I hope that helped. That helps. I hope that analysis helps, guys. Big one here. If you can jump on and hit subscribe if you haven't, guys, and hit like on this video. We're going really well. Seeing a lot of views, so I hope everyone's taking a lot in. If you're not sure on anything that I say, guys, please pop it in the comments. I'll get back to you straight away. Or if you have any further questions, do that as well. But Lucie Layla, we'll move to him. So, all right. Oh, we missed Lucie. Damn. All right, let's get him up. 1 second. Oops. Footy. Alright, won't be editing this out ever. Don't edit on this channel. Makes it a bit easier. Alright, 6'5", for Lucie Layla, 52. Not too much I want to talk about with him. But just going to be solid, consistent. Scored a few tries last year. Probably not as many as he should have. But again, Tigers an average side. Do I think he could average more than 50? Not really. Don't think he's a top 10 edge player. I'd be passing for now. So, yeah, that's that with him. And we'll move to Ola Kuatu. Where are we? Okay. All right. We're back almost. There we go. Ola Kuatu. 620k. He's priced at 50, which is annoying. But a 47 average last year. I think, is there any reason he's priced up because he's got some further potential? I don't exactly know. But obviously, you get a bunch of games here off the interchange at the start. Second row games with less minutes. Starts to go solid. Scores a few tries. Manages to keep his spot on the edge for 80 minutes and plays that for the rest of the year, right? So, you look at that. He has a try scoring upside. My main issue is his base stats at this point. So you're looking at tackles in the high teens to low 20s, which is just not good enough. If for him to make it up to a keeper level, we need to see him around that 30 mark because he obviously has the upside with the meters gain up, averaging a little bit over 100. But then he has a few offloads in his game, obviously a bunch of tackle breaks. So I think he's going to lose a little bit there. You see a bunch of these games here: 5, 6, 4, 7, 4. So that's going to hurt him a little bit. But his ability to improve as a player in general, I think, is what gives him that little bit of upside. But for me, I'd be leaving him at this point. You can check him out over the first few weeks, and if he comes out and he's absolute superstar and he's improved in the offseason, gotten bigger, gotten stronger, gotten more consistent and tackling more, then I think you could pick him up and not, if it's an injury or a suspension, I think you can pick him up easily at that price point. He's not sitting at 800k, and it's like, oh shit, if he goes well, I've missed out. Like, how you can feel with someone like Cleary. So that's my thoughts on Ola Kuatu. But yeah, definitely a solid option to think about in your side. So let's move to the guns in the half point, in the halves there, and Cleary's going to be our starter, and we don't really need to look at his stats. He's actually, should we go on? Why not? Why not? All right. For those that are, we're looking here. He's priced at 84, and he had a 93 average, right? So that helps us out in general. We're not paying overs for someone that's going to have less kick meters. Obviously, tackle breaks is going to be down for him. He does offload a little bit, but not as much as he tackle breaks, for example. So we're getting a little bit of a discount for him. 9 points down. I think one of the other boys is saying he loses. I think he loses 12 points. So, he's probably average should be around that 81, 82. But you're getting a price at 84, the best captaincy option in the game, owned by 47%. It should be probably about 80. I'm going to say is what it should be, but it won't be because people think they're smarter than the system and they're gonna beat everyone. But you look at these scores here; it's just incredible. 144 in one of those games last year. And the thing to think about, guys, he's coming back from the shoulder surgery, but he came back and still scored really well. 74, 106, 59, and 82. Did great. Scored 2 tries in that time and did everything possible in the game. So just got to pick him up, guys. No other way about it. Cherry-Evans. Okay. For him as well, I call him like the mini Cleary in today's game. Water, sorry. But just isn't as good in terms of fantasy scoring and probably in real life too. He's definitely going to be a top option at some point through the year. Personally, I think if most people should be going with Cleary. If you're looking at DCE as well, I'd be looking at him in the back end of the year when you're trying to get the first couple of the 2 best halves in the game. I think DCE will be number 2 again for sure. So for me, definitely in for another good season. You look at his scores there, and he's killer. So 71 average, price is 66, so he's losing obviously a bunch of the kicking meters as well. Just want to make that a little bit bigger. No, there you go. All right, so very consistent again. Has a bunch of games in the 80s, 90s, and then sort of has a floor of around that 40 mark. He has 122 in there, so 119. There's a bunch of big games, and when he scores tries and sets up things. Obviously, they went pretty well last year. I'd expect them to do well again. Tommy did a lot of the assisting and scoring, so can DCE do it again? Yeah, for sure. I don't think Tommy's going to do as well as last year in terms of his crazy assists and try scoring numbers, but they'll be a good team. He'll be doing well at DCE. Okay, Keary only loses 3 on his average compared to his price, so it's 63 down to a price of 60, and he was obviously someone that was kicking a lot at the back end of last year as well. For me, I think he's a little bit too expensive to start with at 750 because you're getting him at that 60 price point, which is really high. Yes, he can come out and do that, but when you've got Cleary, I don't think you can spend the extra on Luke. A lot of the questions around these types of players is, okay, if you're not going for Cleary, then these are the other guys you decide to pick and go with. Maybe you go with a couple of guns, maybe you don't. But more for a little bit later on in the year, and we can obviously see as we go. But these are pretty much everyone here is super consistent, so you know exactly what you're getting from them. With Keary, I expect him to come back strong. They're in a good team. My question is, does he delegate to Sam Walker a little bit, due to his talent? But I'd say that he's still going to score well, and he'll be averaging mid-50s to 60. I just don't see any value at this point when you're picking up Nath. Okay, so we've literally got 3 games on him from last year. Almost played the 80 in the 3 of them, but 60 and 82 and a 48. And tackling ability is completely fine. He was kicking for more meters than he had in the majority of his games previous when he played with Cronk, when he's played with Pierce, for example. So that kick meters obviously drops down his points a little bit, but he was just doing a bit of everything. He's got plenty of tries in his game. But I just don't see the value at this point for Lucas. All right, Jahrome Hughes, 61.6 average, price of 59. Obviously someone that doesn't kick as many meters as those guys, but he really upped his game last year. Scored a bunch of tries, assisted well, one of the better defenders at 7, and making a lot of meters himself. So you can see that really slow start, and that's probably the worry with him at the beginning of this season. Is there's a chance that he's warming into it, but now he's also obviously one of the best halves in the game. So maybe he's really confident in himself. That happened over last season. He became one of the premier halves. Obviously being a championship winner or a premiership winner. The year previous, I think he's only going to get better and better, but he's priced to perfection, really. If you're looking at where he's at, he's priced at a 59. He's going to have stretches where he averages 75, and he's going to have stretches where he averages 50, right? But it's just when you pick him up. He's not going to be playing Origin, so I'd suggest that picking him up before then would be terrific. yeah, I just think he's going to have a similar year. And his partner, Cammy Munster, for me, he didn't even play very well last year, and a lot of people will say that, and he still averaged really high. Only, for Hughes having a magic year, Munster to be priced just under him and have an average that was pretty much the same is pretty incredible, right? Munster's his kicking buddy. He doesn't kick as much, so you won't lose as many points, which is good. Obviously, runs a lot of meters. Bunch of tackle breaks, which is a little bit of a worry. Doesn't offload too much. There's a few random games there. There's a 5 and a 3, a 2, and then another 5 in the back end. So really, it's a 0, 1, or 2 game for him. And tackle busts are very much more over the 2 mark for the majority of his games. But for me, he scored a bunch of tries last year, but he should be scoring more. In a team like this, more assists, more tries, just better gameplay, better game management. I think he should be able to average somewhere around the 63 to 65 mark this year. Obviously, he does play Origins, so that's something to consider. But yeah, I definitely think he has a little bit of upside. At 716k, it's expensive, but nothing crazy compared to I think Keary's probably a little bit way too expensive for what's going to happen this year for him. But yeah, that's my theory. Benny Hunt, 675. So for him this year, you're going to have Sullivan, you're going to have Amone in the 6 role. So it's completely his team. When Norman's there, he's going to take a bit of the role of game manager as well. But Hunt, 675, you're getting him a little bit of a discount to those guys above. I think you'll just clearly average over 50 again. How much over 50? That's going to be the question. The kick meters drop hurts him. He's someone that does average a lot of kick meters. So, 57 average is really, really good. But you're looking at the meters kicked last year, and you're not seeing many games under 230, right? So a lot of games in the 40s, so 400. So he's losing 5 to 7 points pretty regularly with these new rules. He does offload a little bit, which is cool. Very helpful there. So I think that's going to offset his tackle breaks, which is completely fine. But yeah, pretty much no upside on minutes because he played the majority of games. No injury affected games, for example. So for him, there's a solid option. I think he'll do fairly well, but not too much upside there. Fogs is someone that we can skip over fairly quickly, I think. New team, next to a more dominant half in Jack White, and I just think you got to pass on him. He when he was with Ash Taylor or something, he was obviously the dominant half, and he's going to do more of the kicking, etc. He's very much an organising halfback, so he's going to lose a bunch of points there on the kick meters, which you can see he's priced 2 points under his average. But look at the kick meters for him, really, really high, even higher than someone like Benny Hunt, for example. So yeah, I think with Whiten, it's going to be split 50-50. Obviously, he'll be more the game manager, and Whiten will be more the attacking manager, or garner the majority of the attack there. So for me, he is a pass. I hope I haven't got COVID again. Dylan Brown, price of 51, average of 51. So he doesn't lose any there, which is fair because he doesn't really kick the ball as much. So a bunch of games with high kick meters, but you're averaging around that 100 mark for him. It's actually crazy how many points he gets from tackles. Like, what have I put there? So, it's saying he's super solid. And, the new scoring system doesn't change him. Needs to score and assist more, and he can easily be a 60-point gun for me, which is, really cool. Won't play Origin. I definitely think he's an interesting option at the price point, but I probably will wait a little bit on him. I don't see him coming out with a complete bang. I'd like to see him get a little bit more involved in the try scoring and the assists. You look at it here, and he's got 1 assist in the first 7 games, no tries, and then 4 tries for the season, for example, and only 3 assists. Like, that's not enough at all. Obviously, Gutho got a lot of it. Moses did a fair bit too. Reid Marnie had a lot of assists to guys like Isaiah Papali'i. So I definitely think there's some room to grow. He's obviously been around for, 4 years now? 3 years? Yeah, 2019. So 3 years there for him. Young fella, doing well. But then, let's actually have a look at the tackle numbers. Is incredible. 29, 42, 30, 39, 29 there. And he hardly misses at all. So really, really good defender. He came to 42. And this was in game 2 of the preliminaries. 42 tackles, 250 kick meters, and 51 run meters with an assist. Like, if he can do, I definitely think he can do that regularly, right? Obviously, maybe around that 30 tackles, which he continues, but if he can pick up the assists and tries, I think he's going to be solid. So, someone to think about, maybe in the mid-season. Mitch Moses, 631k. The kick meters really hurts him. So I'd say average is similar to what he's priced at, and he's a little bit more volatile compared to Brown, for example. So not someone I want to spend too much time on analysing. I know a lot of people would be interested in him, but 55.5 average, price of 51 is solid, but he's obviously losing plenty as he kicks for a lot of meters. A bunch of games with 400, 500 kick meters, so that will hurt him a little bit. And yes, kicks goals, but again, will be relying on a bunch of tries himself, which he didn't score many last year, and also a bunch of assists to go along with someone who's not a great defensive guy. You're looking at 10 to 15 tackles on the regular basis, with missing 3 to 4 pretty regularly. So yeah, for him, a little bit more volatile. Again, could be an option at some point, but I don't know if today is the day. All right, so Cody Walker we moved to, and he's a really interesting one. It's officially his team now, right? So 630k, Reynolds moves off, Lockie Ilias should be coming in. So does Walker get more kick meters? I think he probably gets a few extra, and that will offset the loss in the points for the kick meters for him, is my assumption and my assessment of the matter. Had an amazing assist season last year. So my question is, can he do that again? If you're looking at some of these games for Cody, it's actually incredible. So 51 average, price of 51, but look at the assist there. So pretty much doesn't, he misses 5 games in the first 11. He misses, with no assists, for example. But then from there, he goes on an absolute tear. 2-2-2, 3, 0, 3-3, 0, and then 2-1, 3, 3. 1. So he just was killing it every game. Probably ran the ball a little bit less than I would have thought. I expect him to be a little bit closer to averaging that 100 meters, and there's a bunch of games in the 40s and 50s there. But when you had the back line that he did, he would get a lot of early balls. So you don't have to run 5 meters with it. Get the defense to bite, and then he'd send it out to Gagai or Johnson. The amount of cutout balls he sent to Johnson, for example. So with their team not being as good this year, yes, that option to get out to Johnson to get a try assist may come a little bit less, but that also means he should have to run the ball a little bit more. So there's some things to think about with Cody. At 51, my main issue is that he's been priced around that 50 to 55 every year. Does this change with Reynolds? They're not going to be as good. I think his assist numbers will drop a bit. So I think the extra kicks, the extra responsibility, I see that probably offsetting the drop in try assists. He had an incredible season with that, like similar to Trbojevic in terms of how amazing the season was. I feel like that'll come back to the pack just a little bit back to the mean, but not too much there. All right, last two guys. Thanks for sticking with me this far, but 52 average for Reynolds for a price at 49. So I mentioned earlier in the interesting options one, I think I can see a little bit of upside for Reynolds. The thing that I reckon most people are missing out, I think he's obviously going to kick the majority of kick meters that he has previously. He's going to be kicking goals. Team won't be as good, so that's a slight down tick, right? So he loses a little bit of the kick meters, which is priced in slightly. We're losing 3 points. He'll probably lose 4 to 5 with his kick meter, 5 to 6 or 5 to 7. So that hurts. He's not someone that tackle busts a lot or offloads a lot, so he probably doesn't really lose too much there. Defensively, he's okay. The biggest one for me with this one, I think his assist numbers has to come up. If you're looking here, he had 6 assists over the year, which is just nothing for a halfback, right? And obviously, you understand where it all went. It all went to Cody Walker, Latrell, Taff, whoever else was out the back, right? And on that left side especially. So Reynolds just got them to their spots, and then they do their job from there. I think he has to step up as an assist man. So anything I think he loses, I think he can get back. If he can average 1 assist per game and a line break assist, for example, let's say an extra 7 points, then it offsets that and probably gives him a little bit more upside. The main worry with him is I think that he's only got a max in him of 55 over the season. So price of 49, a 6-point increase in a team that you're not exactly sure how they're going to go. Is it going to gel straight away? These are all things to think about with Adam, and it's probably why a lot of people are passing, right? So I just wanted to give you all the stats as to how helpful he can be to the team and what he might need to step up in. But again, we know exactly what we get from him in general. Is there an opportunity for extras? Yes, but will it happen? I'm not sure, which means pass. That's probably the easiest way to go about it. All right, last one, guys. Toby Sexton, 600k, you get him at a price point of 48, and he had an average of 59.5. So with him there, that's where people are seeing upside. They're like young star, comes in 4 games, averages 60. He's going to average 60 for the year. Got to give him a side, right? I think that's been debunked a little bit. He's owned by 4%. So I don't think that's too high of a number for someone like Toby, who has the upside. The team's going to be pretty solid, but are they going to be amazing? That's the question. If it was 500k, I think he'd be super highly owned, and I'd be thinking about it, because that extra 100k puts him down to being priced around that 40 mark or just below. So that would be really interesting. But can we get him down that low? Can he average 40 for the first bunch of games and get him down to 500, and then he really warms into the season, especially with their young spine? Maybe they take a few weeks to get into it, and then maybe we can pick him up for 500, 550k when he starts to step up his game. He's obviously going to be doing a lot of the work for the Titans. So for me, he has that ability to average well. How well is he going to go against the better sides? Because he obviously played the weaker ones in those 4 games, Dragons, Dogs, Cowboys, and then finished with the Rabbitohs at the end. He was solid, right, to pick up 40. But I can see a bunch more 40 games and a few less of those 70 games. Like, to get 34 tackles, 1 miss, pretty incredible. That was very much an anomaly game for him. I'd expect those kick meters to probably rise a little bit, so I don't see him losing any points there. He ran the ball really well, offloaded, tackle breaks, got the odd try, kicked goals, try assists. So he did everything right in those first bunch of games, but I just can't see it happening from the start. So have that in mind when you're selecting someone like Toby, is that he's got a lot of room to grow, and it might take a little bit to get there. If he comes out and averages 60 straight away, then a lot of people are going to pick him up anyway, so you wouldn't have missed out too much. So it's probably a little bit of a gamble to go straight away. I can see him averaging anywhere from 40 to 60. Let's say that. So is that too volatile for you to pick him up? It might be. But anyway, guys, that's the halves and also the edges for the guns to pick up. I know a lot of you guys are asking questions about different mid-range players and stuff. I will go through them. Just pump through these videos first. I'll have the centers and wing fullbacks to finish in terms of the guns, and then we'll get through the mid-ranges. I've already done the cash cows there. And then a few people have asked about certain teams and stuff, so we'll go through that as well, guys. But really hope you enjoyed that and took something out of it. I really appreciate you coming here to watch this video and listen to this podcast. And we'll catch you in the next one, guys, where we'll go through those centers and wing fullbacks. See you later.